Hi, I'm Tim Lupinaci. I am the CEO of Baker Donaldson and the author of the upcoming book, Everybody Leads. To me, happiness would be sitting on a beach or at a mountain house, reading a book with my family, my wife, my daughter, and my son in law.
So you said beach or mountain, Tim. So you're not picking one. It's not beach
I know.
or it's one or the other. You got to pick one. Which one
I
is
know.
better?
Well, more often I get to go to the beach because we're about 3.5 hours from that. But I'm not a huge. It's funny. I'm not a huge beach fan. The sand.
Okay.
I like to sit on the porch of the condo or the place I'm renting and see the water and hear the water and just read. It'd be equally as important or equally happy to me to be on the front porch of a mountain house, looking over at the mountain and the vistas and reading and being with family. So either one, but I do beach more often. So probably beach.
Cool. So last time you were on the beach or at the mountains, what were you reading, Tim? What's the most recent book you read when you're doing that?
Oh, when I'm doing that, that's a great question. I read so much. I'm just finishing up. I just wasn't on the beach, but I'm finishing up. Ron Chernow's got that new biography of Mark Twain, which has been
Oh
fascinating.
yeah.
It's really long, it's really dense, but that's pretty good. I've really enjoyed that. I'm reading the latest Jess Walters novel. I think Too Far Gone, which is fiction.
Okay.
I move back and forth between a lot of things, but that would probably be what I'd be reading at the beach. Some biography, some leadership, some fiction for fun.
Awesome. That's great, man. Well, that's one of the things that I enjoy about you the most is that you're always learning, you're always leading, you're always doing different stuff. And then you write this book, Everybody
Yeah.
Leads. So first of all, congratulations, man. This is a big deal.
I'm really excited. I've had the passion for my whole life to want to write something, but it really took a lot of things coming together. Certainly I had the leadership. It's about leadership. I had to really learn and grow and make mistakes and be curious and really have something to say that would help people to be really practical. It's trying to be a real practical guide. So yeah, it's really rewarding that this thing's going to launch. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So what was the final seminal moment that you said, "Yep, I'm going to write this book"?
Well, it's sort of a combination. I mean, the genesis of it was, and I think we may have talked about this before, but I had a boss that I made very early in my career, and I made this huge mistake on a project because I really was looking at my projects as transactional. I was just doing it, turning it in, and moving on. Made a huge mistake. He yells at me in front of a dozen lawyers on the phone and says, "This idiot's going to stay here all night to get it fixed," which I did stay there most of the night. I thought I was going to get fired the next morning. I happened to have drawn the short straw to pick him up going to court for the hearing that this document was all about. And he did apologize. He said, "I should not have yelled at you in front of other lawyers or in front of other people." But he said, "I see real leadership potential in you. I see a potential that you can really thrive in this career, but you got to step up and own it." And that was really the first time that somebody spoke real leadership into me. And so that was really the genesis of, and that led me on my lifelong journey of curiosity about how to lead and how can I learn to lead? What does it mean to be a leader? Because I didn't have any title. But I think the final piece, and I had some other encouragement along the way about you've got a book in you, you should do this. But it really was Bob Goff, New York Times bestselling author, really encouraged me and gave me some real practical tips on how to write a book. I'm particularly as a lawyer, and he was a lawyer too. I want to edit every word as I'm writing it. I could spend an hour on a sentence, right, to make it the perfect sentence. And he said, just get the bad words on the page. Now, when I told my wife that, she thought I meant cuss words. No, no, no. Just get it on the paper and then go back and edit it. And that was freeing to me for some reason as a lawyer to just write. And so that was really the final piece that led to getting this going.
Wow, that's great advice for anybody, right? To
Right.
get the bad words out of you so that you can make the better words later.
That's right. Yeah, it was freeing. Like I said, I don't know that anyone in my profession was making me spend all that time editing, but it is the words are important, right? And particularly in the
Yep.
law. And so that was just a freeing a moment in my life.
Cool. Well, you talk about law because that's your background. So that's interesting. One of the early chapters is first you got to kind of lead yourself. So talk to
Right.
me about that self-leadership as an attorney and really as an employee.
Yeah, well, and that was when Bob challenged me. Bob, my boss, was also named Bob. He challenged me to be a leader. He said, "Well, what does that mean? How can I become a better leader?" And at that time, one of the best-selling books was the John Maxwell 21 Irrefutable Laws of
Oh, yeah,
Leadership.
sure.
so that got me entered into like, okay, I'm going to read. I'm going to try to figure out, and of course, his premise is all about leadership is influence, and how do you really grow your influence and really show up and own what you're doing. And that led me to then want to read other books and go to leadership conferences. And I, I talk in the book, I think about how I turned my car into like a leadership university. I had a Camry where at that time I'm old, so I was listening to books on tape, and of course now it's
Yeah,
all
right on. Same.
audible. Yeah, yeah, those books on tape. But ultimately then evolved whether you could get some books and content on CDs, but now it's
Yep.
all just, streaming. But I was just pouring into myself. It was that daily approach and, turning off the sports radio or the news and listening to things that would help me grow. And I didn't take every book and do a roadmap of all 21 laws I needed to execute on, but I picked a couple things that I could start doing in my life, in my career as a lawyer and as an employee to show up better. And I made mistakes all the way along the way, but it did help me get better. And then over time, you know, you look up and you've got now I'm a little bit more senior lawyer. I've got a young associate looking to me for work, and I'm trying to lead them and lead a paralegal. And next thing you know, it's a larger group, and then it's an office opportunity to lead an office, and you just kind of expand your territory and go from there. So it's really been about that intentionality and that almost like daily discipline of trying to pour into myself and learn.
Wow. Yeah, it is a discipline for sure. And you talk about that a lot in the book, which I really
Yeah.
appreciate. A lot of leadership is discipline. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about how you inspired the law clerk and the receptionist to
Oh,
realize that they're leaders, because you talk about that in the book, but some of the greatest leaders that you've seen are your receptionists. And I think that's really fascinating because a lot of folks would never say that.
yeah. Well, and I think some of it is like that my boss pouring speaking leadership into me. To some of that, I just poured into her. I mean, she is a leader. It was nothing that I inspired her to lead necessarily, but I saw this great leadership potential and leadership opportunity. She, as I talk about Nicole, she owned that reception. If you look at the job description, reception is probably answering the phone, directing it to somebody else, and moving on. But then she really owns that whole reception area. A client shows up and has a problem, she's helping solve it. She hears a lawyer who's challenged about something or is trying to get some video conference working in a conference room near her desk and it's not working, stepping up, and it's not in her job description, but she's then calling the IT person to help unprovoked. I mean, not being asked to do that, and then encouraging Nicole by just really encouraging her on what she's doing and how she shows up, and just with a smile. You just want to be in her presence. I learn about her family, so I'm asking about her daughter and all that. And then over time, now several years later, she has elevated. She's been promoted because of how she really showed up as an impact player. And now she's the assistant leader in that office administrator, assistant office administrator. So it's really so some of it is she's a leader. That's the premise of the book. Everyone leads in some way or the other. It's whether we think about it and how can we show up being better at it. But then when you see that, you speak in the confidence into others. And I think that it's been great to watch Nicole thrive that way.
Wow. Wow. That takes
Yeah.
a good leader to be willing to pour in
uh,
to someone
Yeah.
who might not be willing, might not recognize that themselves. I think that's good
Yeah.
leadership. It's paying
Well,
attention, right?
Well, it's kind of paying it forward too, because that's like I said, that's my boss spoke into me, and it is paying attention, and I think that is good leadership. I mean, and I know Phil, your journey, you're going to have this ability to really impact and influence next generation. It's really about pouring into people. That's really what matters. Is helping them, other people along their journey. There's this. My last name's Italian, but I'm not Italian. I mean, I guess it goes way back, right? So I don't look Italian. But I do know there's the ancient Rome had this term called anteambolo, and I might be mispronouncing it, but it means this idea of someone who clears the path for others. And I think that's really what it's all about, is really trying to help clear the path so those behind us or those around us can thrive, can succeed, and can grow. And so that's really about it is. It's about listening. It's just showing up and then pouring into others.
Wow. That's excellent. That's excellent. I love Antiamblo. That's a good one to think about, right? Leaders clear the way. They remove the
Yeah.
obstacles and they get things out of the way. I think that's powerful. That's really
Yeah.
powerful for folks. So with that, we're going to dive into a couple of the concepts in the book, because you've got a lot of great stuff here. The book was
Yeah.
endorsed by Bob Goff, as you mentioned, Dan Pink, which is fantastic, right? John Acuff, really good endorsement as well. So I was impressed. I knew that I had to read the book when I saw that. After having you on the show, though, I knew that I wasn't going to be disappointed. So this is great to have you back.
That's great. No, I'm thrilled to be here, and yeah, there's a lot of great. And then what I really tried to do with the book is, I said, I take all these great concepts that I've read about and learned about, and I think a lot of the great research that's out there can be really, theoretical. It can be the research that says, yeah, people like to have purpose in their life to then thrive. But what does that look like? How do we implement purpose in what we're doing? So I really tried to make it a manual or a book that can help anyone, no matter where you are, to have some practical steps you can take. Just one or two ideas from the book, and it can really help you grow your influence. And so that's really how the book is structured, with storytelling and trying to really connect the dots on how it impacted me and how I've been able to grow my leadership.
Yeah, the storytelling was what stood out to me, is lots of not just great theory, but great stories, which I think is super valuable. So let's get into one of them. Let's talk
Yeah,
about curiosity first of all.
yeah.
Curiosity is a great leadership attribute. So how does that show up in those that may not have a title yet for leadership?
Yeah, and I do it every day. Is I'm trying to look at. I'm not the smartest person around, and I don't have all the answers. And so when I'm interacting, like I meet you, Phil, I want to ask questions. I want to understand what makes you tick. I want to understand maybe what are some interesting things that you're learning or interesting challenges you're having, and just being curious. And then and you can ask the questions, but equally important is listening, right? And then I can learn. I mean, you're going to tell me some things that are going to help me in my own journey that I'm on. You're going to give me some intel about maybe your family or something that I can put in the back of my head and say, oh yeah, I remember Phil's son is or daughter's going to go do this, and I can then ask you about it later. And just being curious. I think everybody has a story to tell. Everyone has an ability to speak into us to help me learn. Like I said, I don't know it all. I don't know much. I'm just trying to learn every day and get better every day. And so if I'm asking questions and listening, I find that just a freeing approach to building relationships. I think I'm more on the extroverted scale. I really get fired up by being around people. I need my introverted time too. But sometimes in big groups, I can be a little if I come into a big group and I'm not sure I know a lot of people, I can be a little intimidated. But if I just try to focus on one person and then just get curious about them and getting people talking about themselves, it calms me down, but it also gives me some insight into something I may not have realized. So that's kind of how I show up. And it's also with the reading and listening to podcasts like yours and, watching YouTube videos and things like that of how we can grow and learn and get better.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. So you mentioned something in there that maybe you didn't exactly say the words, but you mentioned humility and
Yeah.
humbleness as a leader. So talk to me about how humility plays a big part in leadership.
Yeah, I think it does. I think people are looking for, what was it? Kouzes and Posner wrote that famous book, Leadership Challenge. It's been around for 25, 30 years. And they talked about this idea of, they've done testing all around the world. And there's like four concepts or four traits that people look to as the most admired leaders. And it's things like honesty, it's inspiring, it's forward looking, things like that. But that idea of honesty and being open and transparent and authentic, I think that's what people crave. They crave to want to know their leader. And so there are clearly examples of very successful leaders who are more top down authoritarian, that my way or the highway, and that some of them have dented the universe even, right? My approach has been I'm here. I want to serve. I'm honored to be able to be in this role. I want to help get better. I want to help us accomplish our goals organizationally. But really, that's only going to be done if each individual is able to, see that they have a pathway to achieve their great ambitions, and really try to learn and serve. Now, I have to have tough decisions. I have to make tough decisions. I have to have tough conversations. It doesn't mean that it's, a lot of times some people think humbleness or servant leadership is weakness, and I don't think that's it at all. I think you have to be really steeled up to make those hard decisions and to drive forward, and you have to be, keep the organization heading in the right direction. But I look at it, if I'm going to learn, if I'm going to help you get better, I need to know things I can get better at. And how we can get better organizationally. And I'm not in the trenches day in and day out practicing law anymore, so I don't know all that. So I need to learn and know that. So really asking questions and being curious is a form of humility in my sense, because I don't know it all. It's worked for me. I think it's a great approach. I think that's what people want in their leaders.
Yeah, I think so too, Tim. I see that the leaders that I've responded to the most are the ones that know the least, or at least are the
Hmm.
most curious, right?
Right.
The ones that are the most curious, that ask the most questions, that are willing to say, you know what, I don't know. What do you think?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then, of course, like I said, everybody loves talking about themselves, right? And so that just gets you, that builds relationship as you're asking their opinion. And I ask for feedback all the time. And then we can't. We do an annual engagement survey, and we had about 1,300 people in the firm, and we had about 1,100 actually took it, and we got 17 or 1,800 distinct answers. It was a lot of numerical survey, like strongly agree, disagree, that kind of stuff. But then you had an opportunity to type in feedback and questions or whatever, and there were 1,700 distinct comments that were made. Some were encouragement. Some were, Tim should be fired, and you kind of discount the one person out there. But then there was a lot of really good constructive feedback, and we can't do all of it. But people need to know that when you ask for feedback, when you ask those questions, that you really did hear them. And so we sit back as an executive team and look at all those comments, and we came up with an action plan. We heard from you that our communication may not have been as clear as it could be. Maybe it's a little too verbose. We're working on that. Here's our plan to how we're going to work on that. We heard from you that you thought the shareholder compensation structure was a little bit unclear. So we set a town hall and we talked through your questions. And then, the third big bucket was culture. How do we keep maintaining a great culture when we are growing? We've added 4 offices in the last couple of years. So that led to this road trip I mentioned, where our COO and I are going to all of our offices, 24 offices in about 7 weeks. And we're talking and we're building culture and we're walking the halls. So that's a direct, hey, we heard you. Here's our action plan. Now we can't make all those changes. There are some comments about we should do this or do that, and we can't do that, but we are going to be able to do this and continue to thrive. So yeah, that's a lot of the ways that you can get the feedback and then execute on it.
Yeah, well, I think the action plan is really key. Having
Yeah.
something that you're actually going to do about it is so
Yeah.
much more important than just saying, I hear you, right? I
Right.
hear you, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make this change, and I'm going to make sure that this happens so that you see it in action. It's not just hollow words.
Exactly. You got to walk the walk, right? And
Yeah.
we've all seen that, people that just talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. So you absolutely have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned being on site now with the 24 offices. So, how much different is encouragement when you're with people than it is when you're remote, than you're in
Yeah.
different locations?
No, and it's interesting because there's so important on both aspects, because we are spread out, from Texas all the way up to New Jersey. I can't be everywhere all at once, and I can't, best case I'm in a couple offices, every office at least once or twice a year. But when I'm in person, I'm getting up in the morning and I'm telling myself the best way that I'm going to have impact on Baker Donaldson today is to be fully present when I'm in this office. And so we do a couple town hall meetings within the office, live with some food. We do a social event, and then I walk the halls, and I'm really focused on that interpersonal connection, listening, learning, and doing it. And then we end the day and we're driving to the next city. And then I get to the hotel and I got to do the work that I didn't do in the day. But that's so important to not just be there and say, oh, yeah, I checked the box. I was here in Knoxville or whatever. It's about really interacting with everybody. So that is and expressing gratitude. How can I help you? Thank you so much for the great work you're doing. Thank you for, I always thank the office administrators in each of these offices. I feel a little bit like it's a whirlwind. Our COO, Jennifer, and I, we roll into town. They put together all these, meals and, social events, and they're having everyone's, we all have matching t-shirts that we wear when we're there, summer road trip kind of like thing. And then we roll out of town and they're like left with, oh my gosh, what happened? Right. But I'm thanking them for that. So that's the in-person. But when you're spread out, I think equally important is it's writing notes, hand notes of gratitude. I think there's all this research out there that when I write a note to thank somebody for what they're doing, that it always bounces back that I'm feeling more positive and I get more energy from writing the note than maybe what they get when they experience reading it. And so that's something I really try to work into my day too, is to try to get, a couple thank you notes written every day to send out across the footprint. And there's all kinds of other ways to express gratitude, but those are a couple things I try to do in person and then when I'm away and when I'm virtual.
Okay, so those handwritten notes, those make sense to me a lot. So give us a couple more ways, Tim, that you do that remotely, because I think people are a little bit more dispersed than they once were. So give us a
Yeah.
couple more examples, please.
Yeah, well, so you can certainly do, like, I've used video. You can do like a real quick video to just thank somebody. Video. It's another example of kind of that the idea. I will send if I hear something about somebody did something really well, I may send it like a little gift. I'm not talking about you have to spend a lot of money, just something that's thoughtful. I know, like we were recruiting a lateral one time, and he was mentioning his life's journey was pretty remarkable. And I said, well, but man, you sound like Forrest Gump, just the way that the life had all these different things. And he just is I found out he was a big reader. So I went to a local bookstore here that has signed first editions, and there was a reissue of Forrest Gump. I didn't get the original, but there was and I just sent him a copy of the book that was signed by I guess it's Winston Groom,
Yep.
just to say, hey, it was great to meet you. Your life's really amazing, kind of like this guy. And that's like, he still talks about that. He did join us and he still talks about it several years later. So there's ways to do that. And then, something I've done, which doesn't necessarily, it was something that I did give to someone, is I realized at one point I was traveling a lot and seemed like I was grumpier than I normally was. This is several years ago. And I heard about this idea of doing a gratitude journal. And so I actually did that for my wife and daughter. I got a separate journal, and for about 90 days, I wrote each day just something I was grateful for about them, which was, you had to get creative because you couldn't just say, you have a great smile, 90 days. That's kind of like not, whatever. And then I gave it to him on Thanksgiving. I kind of did it in the fall, but that really changed my mindset as I was really looking for things to be thankful for in family members. So that's another thing that I've done on gratitude. And it really helped me, as I said, helped my mindset to do that. So those are some other ways that I've done that.
Yeah, that double impact is so interesting. When we do good
Yeah.
for others, it impacts
Yeah.
us just as much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'd really love that. That's so important and so valuable. And I love to hear about a CEO who takes time to send video, because I'm
Yeah.
sure those get kept. Because
Yeah.
how many? I mean, I've never had a CEO send me a video, and I've been working a long time. Now that being said, I've gotten phone calls and stuff like that
Yeah.
back before video was popular. So I'm still thankful for those. But that's interesting and that's powerful as you do
Yeah.
that. So does that result, do you think, in other leaders doing the same thing, Tim, or is that just a Tim thing?
Well, no, I certainly don't require people to do it, but we do talk about the importance of gratitude and expressing gratitude. And I really try to make that is a part of my DNA, to try to express that and really thanking people in the moment too. And I think I see that show up. I mean, I get notes from some of our leaders. I see, you go around, and when I'm walking the halls, you'll see, somebody's got a note pinned up that came from one of their leaders, or office leader, or their practice leader. It really, you can't sell how important it is when somebody receives a note like that. I keep a stack of notes that I've received, and when I'm having one of those no good, horrible, bad days, I'll pull them out and just start reading. Like, yeah, okay, people are grateful for what I'm doing, even though today was a really bad day. So, yeah, it's really valuable. Like you said, both ways.
Both ways. And I think that's fascinating that you still keep the notes that you've received. As a
Yeah.
CEO, we forget sometimes that that people need that even no matter the level, we still need that
Yes,
for us from
that's right.
from the people that we serve.
Exactly. No, it's so powerful, and I'm so grateful when I receive those notes. And then, like I said, I keep them but rubber band, and I'll pull them out every once in a while and just start flipping through them. And a lot of it is, even like now, 5 years, 6 years later, I've been in the role. Some of the folks have retired. I haven't talked to them, and I get to think fondly about being in the trenches with them in the past. So,
Awesome. That's really
yeah,
cool. Well, one more topic we're going to talk about is the in between. I think that's
yeah,
an interesting topic you mentioned in the book, and everybody leads. You talk about the in between. So, talk to
yeah.
me what that means, Tim.
Yeah, I really think about that in the context of strategy. We really spend a lot of time, and because the firm's Baker Donaldson, we use Baker in front of a lot of things. We have Baker Fit and Baker Well, and so our strategy is Baker Vision 2028, and we launched it in 2022. And you can debate whether 5 or 6 year vision is too long, too like a strategy, but that was what we put into place. And a lot of organizations will take that vision and then they put it on the shelf, and it gathers dust, and then a few years later, oh, we need a new strategy. But we really wanted to be intentional about putting it into practice, and we built out a charter, and we built out a whole plan to make sure we're continuing to execute it. And when we launched it, we had a retreat in New Orleans, and everyone's rah rah, this is Baker Vision 2028, we're going to go conquer the world. And then I think once we get to 2028 and we're coming near the end of it, there's that big boost of energy to, like, we're going to get across the finish line. We have some metrics and goals we're trying to accomplish. But then you've got this, like, some people call it the muddy middle. I call it the in between. How do we keep momentum over, a multi-year process? And so some of what we've done is, first of all, you have to recognize that that's there, and you'll lose momentum. Is we've kind of tried to make sure we keep the vision front and center. We talk about it. We start every meeting with we have the mission statement there, and we talk about it. And our mission statement is built on what our clients want. It's not Tim's vision. It's what our clients are demanding about how they want their legal services provided by trusted advisors. So we talk about that. But then we look at what are some things that we need to get better at within that umbrella of Baker Vision. So we saw that our colleagues were really buying into these ideas of knowing their client's business, building those trusted relationships, getting around and being present with them, kind of some of the things we've talked about that you do internally, but doing it with clients. But we saw that it wasn't everybody in the firm was really stepping up and doing it. So this year we kind of came up with a sub theme of owning your impact. Baker Vision's the vision. We got to do that. We're trying to drive the mission statement, but everybody has to. I mean, Tim can only drive community so much because I'm one person, but you are going to build community with our colleagues on the ground, and you have to own that every day. And so the impact has different. It's an acronym, so we talk a lot about knowing your client's industry, so industry depth, or the P is purpose. How are you pulling purpose into what you're doing in your team, that they see the work you're doing really is having big impact because your clients in some instances are changing the world. So that in between, a way to keep focused while it's over multiple years is, okay, this year we're focusing on owning our impact, and we're giving all these tips and ideas about how can you own your impact day in and day out to help drive the vision long term and help your own success. So I think it's really important to just continue to keep that momentum, that flywheel that Jim Collins talks about. You get some momentum coming out of the launch. How do you keep that momentum going? And that's some of the things I try to unpack in the book.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, lots of great stuff in the book, and Everybody Leads. It's a powerful book. You got lots of stuff there. So, Tim, what's one more idea from the book that maybe we didn't get a chance to cover in depth that you can introduce for us to get people excited to go get a copy of the book?
Yeah, the one thing that really resonated with me, and one of my favorite chapters in the book, is that there was a professor at the London School of Economics. I think his last name was Ghoshal, and he talked about this idea that we each have a leadership aroma. And he's not talking about maybe the deodorant we're wearing or the perfume. He's talking about how we show up every day. And he's originally from Calcutta, India, and because he teaches during the year, as now you're going to be doing your free times in the summer, right? And he would go home to Calcutta in the summer, and it would be 105 degrees, 100% humidity. And he said, you're lethargic. You don't feel like doing anything. You're moping around, just laying around, no energy. And then he talked about another time he got to teach as an adjunct professor at a school in South France. And he talked about the Fontainebleau forest in France. And in the springtime, it's gorgeous, and the trees are all out and the flowers. And he said, and there's like a nice cool breeze, and you just feel like leaping through the forest. And he said that he uses that as a leader. Are you going to show up like Calcutta in the summer or Fontainebleau Forest in the spring? And that resonated with me because I can come into an office and close my door, and then if I have to run to the restroom or get a water, my head's down, I'm thinking, I'm just, I'm really have a scowl on my face. Or I can walk through the halls and see my colleagues and interact with them. And I'm not talking about, mamby-pamby, all utopia, but we do how we show up matters. People take their cues from their leaders. And again, everyone is a leader. So, you may feel like you only have a small little amount of influence. You have influence, and how you show up really matters. And so I really try to talk in that chapter about how we can show up and how our leadership aroma really does matter. So that's something that resonated with me.
Oh, I love that. Leadership aroma, right? The scent of what we're carrying around with us that people are able to smell, catch a whiff of, and hopefully inspire them to do better work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Well, Tim, if people want more from you, obviously they should get a copy of the book. Definitely get a copy of Everybody Leads. But where should they go, Tim? Is there a place online where they can interact with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I'm also bakerdonaldson.com. You can find my personal email address. And then everybodyleads.org. It's a nonprofit aspect of Everybody Leads, where I'm teaching in some inner city settings and underserved communities. And there's a lot of content there on everybodyleads.org. So, Phil, I really appreciate this opportunity to even get to talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybodyleads.org is a great resource for folks. So take a look at that. And again, get a copy of the book. Go get a copy of Everybody Leads by Tim Lupinaci. It's going to be out very soon. Probably by the time you listen to this, you'll probably have an opportunity to go get it. So get your copy. And Tim, once again, my friend, thanks for spending some time with me. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate you and all you're doing and your impact on the world. You're doing a great